Okay, Mark, let's hear it. So when I walked in today, Gene said to me, "How many people do you think are going to be here?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking maybe 15." So I want to say that we've met at 15, and the other 45 of you that are here, thank you for coming. All 60 of you. So. The life of a candidate requires a lot of giving from the candidate's spouse, and so I want to start off by thanking my beautiful wife, Jane, for bearing with my demands of the campaign trail over these last 6 months. I am truly blessed to have her in my life, and you know, I believe strongly in the teamwork of marriage, and so the campaign never got off to a start. It didn't even exist until my wife and I decided as a family unit that we were going to engage in this endeavor. And I don't think that either of us realized how much we were going to be challenged, not our marriage, but how much we were going to be challenged by the interesting things. That's just a very nice way of saying the nastiness of the campaign that comes your way as a candidate. And it's interesting because we've been campaigning now. I mean, it seems like we've been campaigning our whole life, and it's almost surreal to look and see. Look, eight days from now, this thing's going to be over, and this is a big election. You know, this is a big election not just for me and Jane, but for our country and for our state. And it just seems surreal. It's like, you know, 9 days from now it's over. So we have a lot of work to do over the next 8 days. And we have to make sure that folks get out and know that they need to exercise their rights, that many people in our world don't even have the right to vote. And so we need to actually make sure that our friends and neighbors, family, and relatives exercise that vote. And we have the cheapest and most effective way of campaigning in our hands. It's called word of mouth. It costs absolutely nothing. And so a lot of the most effective campaigning is indeed word of mouth. We need to make sure, and I'm broadening. I'm not even talking about just my campaign, but there's a lot on this ballot, front and back, top to bottom. In Troy, it starts with president and it ends with the recall election, and we need to make sure that people turn the ballot over and vote for everything that's on the back as well as everything that's on the front. And of course, we want to make sure that Janice stays in office as well. You know, Janice's situation is, and much of politics these days, is a fight of good versus evil. When you have a team that is trying to basically undo reforms and changes versus those of us that actually want to restore America and the state of Michigan to the greatness which made us the envy of the world. And we cannot allow that to slip from our hands. And oftentimes it's people like me who are not the most polished, but that are actually called to this duty. And but the truth of the matter is, in my 11.5 years on the city council, you knew what you were going to get from me. You knew where I was standing on the issues, and I wasn't going to lie to you. And I believe in this mantra, and I tell my elected officials the same thing. We need people to stand up and be willing to lose an election, because we only have one life. God has given us one life. God has given each and every one of us a duty and a task to live our life as He sees it to be. And whatever it is that we are called to do is challenging, but it's not so challenging that God hasn't given us the tools to do it. And therefore, those who are indeed elected to public office have a duty and a responsibility, not just to the fellow man and woman, but also to God Himself, to use their abilities to advance civilization and to do what they can do best to represent their fellow man and women. Because it's not a right, it's a responsibility, and it's a duty when you're an elected official. And we need people to actually have that humility, be elected to office these days. And I'm speaking much more broadly than my case, because I'm frustrated as an American, as a Troy citizen, and as a citizen of the state of Michigan, the things that should be easy, problems that should be easily solved, that are made much, much more complicated and necessary by politicians, the very people that have been elected to represent us. And so this election not a surprise to many of us, is indeed the most important election of our lifetime. And that's not a bunch of hot air, it's the God's honest truth. So again, top to bottom, do what you can to exercise the cheapest and most effective way of campaigning, that word of mouth. And before I turn the gavel back over to, I want to also acknowledge once again Tim and Honey Murray. This is an interesting situation.
It is.
Thank you very much for coming, and they're doing a great job tonight. But what's interesting is what, 5-6 months ago, I'm going down the street knocking on doors, and I come to your house, and you offered to put up a lawn sign, but you also offered to do something much more, and something I was never expecting to have offered, which is to perform at any event or multiple events that I would see fit. And so we wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to show your talents. And this is Troy's hidden gem, Tim and Honey Murray. We will make sure we post a link on Facebook so you can see their website, DetroitTracks.com, and there's lots of good stuff there. So I wanted to once again thank them. And when you folks are leaving here, just make sure and when you're eating and enjoying your food and company, make sure you realize that we have live entertainment here. DetroitTracks.com, and we'll make sure we try to put some sort of a recognition and a link on our Facebook page as well. And before I forget, we have 2 young men that have organized this event, and I want to make sure I thank them as well. One is my father, Frank, in the back there, standing looking at me waving. And his partner here, and they make quite a duo if you ask me, Gene Zimbrewski, who is my campaign manager as well. Thank you, Dad, and thank you, Gene, and I will turn the gavel to my campaign manager.
But don't go away.
But I won't go away.
There were a number of people who had questions, so I think you've got time for questions. If not, we'll make time.
I will indeed make time. Raise your hand and I will see what I can do. There are questions? Because the other option is Jane and I are mingling around too. But anybody want to ask a question? Yes, Marianne.
When you first get to our state capitol, what's the first thing on your agenda?
To find out where the men's room is. No, but there's actually, that's not too far from the truth, because there is a lot of administrative work, meaning that if I am indeed elected, there's the importance of leadership elections within the Republican Party, and we want to maintain Republican majority in the state house this year. That's very important because what's the option? Well, the option is to go back to the glory days of 2009. And I say that with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek because that was a horrific time. We don't want to go back. We want to go forward. And the Republicans and Governor Snyder, they're not doing everything perfectly, but my gosh, at least they're moving Michigan forward. So that's really important. We need to have good leaders in the state, and if I'm elected, that's actually the first thing I'll be doing is participating in Republican caucus to get good leaders. And then they ask me if I want to, what committees I want to be on, and being a new member, I'll ask for all these things, and I'll be lucky to get something. But at the end of the day, everything that I say in my campaign literature, everything I talk to every one of you individually, everything I say at the doors is what I want to do when I'm in Lansing. I want to move Michigan forward. I want to make Michigan great again. We have a well-educated workforce. We have great schools, great universities. We're surrounded on 3 sides by water. We have the ability to be at least in the top 10, if not the best state in the country. And so to have 12 years of economic malaise, 38 out of 44 quarters of economic contraction, which is the equivalent of a depression, we're done with it. It's time to get over it and move forward. And I want to be part of that process, and we can do that through limited government, through lower taxes, less regulation, and by being neighborly, by rising up as communities and embracing the innovation as the spirit of America, and not by waiting for the government to come and rescue us. So that's what I'm going to be doing in my 2 years if I'm indeed elected. And I will certainly, as I did when I was on the city council, the first day I woke up after my first victory in 2000, I woke up and I said, oh my gosh, I've got 80,000 people that are depending on me to do my job. And I can't please everybody, but I have to make sure that I respect everybody's opinions and actually approach matters with an open mind. And so that's what you'll get from me when I represent, if I'm indeed elected, the residents of Troy and Clawson. Nick.
Yeah. When Proposition 5, the 2/3 vote, was originally proposed, there was another rider in there that included the restrictions of local governments from constantly bringing up new voting for millages. I'm sorry, yeah. Constantly bringing up millage votes like we had in the library. 3 millage votes in a library, 3 or 4 millage votes on a high school. You know, that was supposed to be part of Proposition 5, and it is not. Can we get this thing done?
Well, you've got two different things going on there, because the whole thing about voting more than one time for the same tax, it was addressed a couple of years ago with the election consolidation. However, you can always reformulate the tax within that same year, as we saw here in Troy, where we had 3 tax increase proposals over 18 months, I believe it was. And you know, the media likes to think of Proposal 5 as being some radical proposal, but you know, I say, look, if a tax increase is so good, then you should be able to get 2/3 of the legislature to approve it. And if they can't, and it's still really good, you still have the ability to get it through by popular vote. It's just like when we passed, a number of us, and Ed Kempen was one of the